Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. We're continuing our deep dive into Khajeh Nasir al-Tusi, and today we're really focusing on his ideas about the intellect, aql, its power, but also, importantly, its limits.
Exactly. And just before we jump in, our usual reminder, this is based on translations of discussions with Iranian philosophers, so some subtleties might not translate perfectly. We appreciate you keeping that in mind.
Right. Good point. So last time we touched on intellect versus intuition. Now we want to get into what Tusi thought the intellect itself actually is.
And a really key way into that is looking at his relationship with Sadr al-Din Qunawi. It's quite something how much respect Qunawi had for Tusi.
Yeah, the titles he used, Master of Great Virtues, Pride of the Last and First, those aren't just empty words, are they?
Not at all. The sources suggest it points to a really profound intellectual bond. Even though they weren't physically together, their letters, their correspondence, created this deep connection. They use the terms Muwasalat and Mufatah.
Okay, so Muwasalat, that's about joining, connecting. What about Mufatah?
Mufatah means an opening, specifically like an opening of the mind or spirit. It's the opposite of a mind that's locked up. The Quran even talks about kulub akfalaha, hearts or minds, having locks on them.
So a mind can get kind of frozen, maybe by being too attached to worldly things or desires or even just fixed ideas, and that stops you from seeing the truth.
That's the idea. These attachments can sort of congeal the mind. But Tusi and Qunawi, they were seen as having these open minds, sinigere mokaful minds, capable of real exchange.
And that's where genuine dialogue happens, right, between these open minds, not just, arguing back and forth like you see sometimes, the jadal.
Exactly. Real understanding flows between open minds, and this openness, this capacity, is tied directly to wisdom. There's that saying, aql mifta al-hikmah, the intellect is the key to wisdom.
It really makes you think how much disagreement comes from people just having those locked minds you mentioned.
It's a very relevant thought, definitely. Yeah. Now, related to this, there's the difficulty of reaching absolute certainty just through pure reason alone.
Yes, the Ra'i Istidlal, or Borhan-e-Nazari, the path of logical proof.
Right. Both Qunawi and Tusi felt that getting definitive knowledge only that way is, well, incredibly difficult.
They even mention great thinkers complaining about the burdens of divine knowledge.
Yes. And they bring in Ibn Sina Avicenna, who apparently said that, human power is mostly limited to understanding the properties and effects of things, not their deep, true essence, the haike kalashia.
But it's important to stress they didn't think the path of reason was useless or completely blocked, did they?
No, not at all. Difficult, yes, but not closed. The sources really emphasize the sheer effort involved in doing it properly, the preparation, the deep thinking, reviewing, contemplating. It requires continuous, rigorous work.
It's also fascinating that Qunawi, coming from that mystical Ibn Arabi tradition, is referencing a philosopher like Ibn Sina here. It sort of bridges those worlds.
It really does. And Ibn Sina himself, while saying grasping the essence of things is figayat al-ishkal, incredibly difficult. He didn't say impossible. It links to that famous plea, wanting to see things kama hiya, as they truly are.
And wasn't there a lost book of Ibn Sina's? Something about his mystical side?
Ah, yes, the Kitab al-Insaf, the Book of Impartial Judgment. Such a loss. It might have shed so much light on his thought, maybe even on Eastern wisdom in general, destroyed in an invasion, sadly, a real what-if in intellectual history.
Definitely makes you wonder. So, okay, reasoning alone is hard. But Tusi, like Ibn Sina talked about another way, right? This intellectual intuition hads.
Exactly, hads. And it's crucial. This isn't just guessing or imagination, what they call awam. It's something deeper.
So what is it then, according to Tusi?
For Tusi, this direct seeing, this Shuhud or inner witnessing, it's actually the intellect itself working at a higher frequency, you could say. He calls it the eye of the intellect, Intellect.
The eye of the intellect. So the intellect isn't just one thing, it has levels.
Kind of. Think of aql as the faculty, and Ain al-aql as its sharpest, most perceptive aspect. This eye directly perceives the intelligible world, the maqalat.
Which is the realm of understandable realities, beyond just what our senses tell us.
Precisely. It's where the essences of things, the haqqaiq, can be grasped. It sounds a bit like Plato's ideas, things seen by the intellect.
Okay. Is there an image or analogy they use for this?
There's a beautiful one from the Quran, actually, about the oil, zayt, for a lamp being so pure it almost shines by itself. Ikaro zetola, yuzi wala, lam tamsal snar. Even before fire touches it. That's used to illustrate this direct insight. Light upon light, Nur ala nur.
Wow, light upon light. That's powerful. So the intellect can have these direct flashes of insight,
Right.
but it also understands its own limits.
Yes, that's another key point Tusi agreed with. The intellect, at its best, yarifu bihada, it knows its own boundary.
How so? What makes it different from other limited things?
Well, unlike, say, an animal, the intellect can grasp the concept of something beyond its limits, like the infinite. We can think about infinity, understand the concept, even though we can't fully picture it or contain it. That self-awareness is unique.
And this knowing its limits, that connects to understanding the unseen, the Gabe.
Exactly. Because it recognizes there's something beyond its immediate data. It opens the door to considering things beyond empirical proof. And this ties into the idea of way, revelation too.
How does revelation fit in?
It's presented as a kind of pure intellect, akoli kalis, like knowledge received directly into the understanding without passing through the filters of imagination or the senses first.
So could the intellect, for Tusi, actually engage directly with God?
The idea discussed is that God's address, kalamahom sfizati okolihim, he spoke to them in the essence of their intellects, is precisely to the intellect.
Which implies that things like prophecy, religious law, they have a rational foundation.
Very much so. Even worship, evadat, isn't seen as purely arbitrary. There's an intellectual basis, like the principle of shakare monum, the rational duty to thank the one who gives you blessings.
That makes sense. Your intellect tells you gratitude is appropriate, necessary even, and that can lead towards worship.
Right. It connects back to that verse, wafi anafusikum afala tubsirun, and in yourselves, then will you not see. The idea that the answers, the signs, are within us if we use our inner vision, our tabsir, which is guided by the intellect.
Rumi wrote about that, didn't he? Look inside so you don't hear, will you not see?
He did. Look within or face that gentle reproach.
So putting it all together, Tusi sees the intellect as this powerful discoverer of truth.
Yes, the kashefe hakaikeaklepak, the discoverer of the truths of the pure intellect. It can distinguish truth from falsehood, from aham washayab, illusions and impurities.
But it's not infallible on its own. It needs something more.
That's the final piece, really. While capable, its accuracy and soundness are perfected or may be confirmed by divine revelation. Tali mewai, the intellect can err.
So revelation acts as a sort of guide or check.
You could put it that way. It helps the intellect discern its own findings correctly. There's a recognition that even intellectual discoveries can be mistaken, and perhaps a higher level guided by revelation helps sort it out. Even mystics claiming direct insight can be wrong, Tusi would argue, so the intellect remains a crucial touchstone.
So they aren't opposed, intellect and revelation. They work together.
Absolutely. Interconnected, the intellect benefits from and ultimately aligns with divine guidance in Tusi's view.
It's a really rich picture of the intellect, powerful, capable of insight, self-aware of its limits, and ultimately connected to the divine.
It truly is. A lot to digest about his capabilities and his boundaries.
So maybe the question for you, listening, is how does thinking about the intellect in this way, with both its power and its acknowledged limits, affect how you see our human potential? Our potential for knowledge, but also for spiritual understanding.
A deep question to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this exploration.
We hope you'll join us again next time on Wisdom Unveiled.